Hi, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Sean Squires. I'm a product manager on the SharePoint Syntex team, and I'm joined today by Netta Havey, product lead for the Azure Form Recognizer team, and Cedric Bellarosa, product lead for AI Builder. We're excited to have you here with us today to learn about some of the many advantages and innovations in artificial intelligence from Microsoft, including Azure Cognitive Services, the Power Platform, and Microsoft 365, specifically around processing documents, extracting metadata, and driving business process. Whether you're building using Microsoft 365 and SharePoint Syntex, or doing low-code development using Power Platform with AI Builder, or even creating a full-on custom app in Visual Studio and directly calling Azure Cognitive Services, we're excited to share with you some of our latest innovations. The goal of this session is to help you understand what's available and how Microsoft can assist you with your document management needs with tools and services that provide AI-powered solutions in the Microsoft Cloud. We want to make sure that you have a clear understanding of how AI Builder and SharePoint Syntex build from the Azure AI stack and work together to provide these AI-powered solutions. To emphasize the power of robust AI-powered solutions that work across the platform, again, whether you're a developer, a citizen developer, or a content creator. I want to lead with something obvious. Documents are everywhere. They're the lifeblood of business. SharePoint and Office have for years been helping our customers transform and manage these digital assets, providing the cool tools to create, manage, and govern and retrieve them. But admittedly, many of these tasks are still largely manual, time-consuming, and even prone to error, especially when it comes to things like metadata that is especially useful for information retrieval and even driving workflow process. On top of that, each organization, even departments within the same organization, have a wide variety of documents that could have different compliance, security, and even format requirements. Hospitals for claim management, law firms for litigation materials. There's an example and challenge in every industry. And many are faced with a big digital transformation effort right now. Imagine taking all those years of paper materials and putting them in the cloud to make them easier to take advantage of. If they could digitize that data and make it searchable in a secure and compliant environment, imagine how much more effective you could be with their time. We're working with customers every day to help them modernize these legacy paper-based materials, or at least optimize and streamline many of the more digital ones. Now, there aren't just challenges in the digitizing of physical assets and indexing them. There's also challenges in the content lifecycle itself, especially as we work across teams, repositories, and time. I think we've definitely seen this in the last couple of years during the pandemic as more of us have worked remote. With increased collaboration, the importance of metadata and proper tagging, document classification, and even compliance labeling is becoming especially critical. And that's really what we want to highlight with the new improvements and capabilities in this session. We want to show you how these new AI improvements and tools and services across the stack really help facilitate every developer and business person without requiring machine learning expertise. In this session, we're going to focus on the Azure AI technologies that support document intelligence and how AI Builder uses these REST APIs with a rich interface to train models, and then in turn how SharePoint Syntex incorporates AI Builder and these AI apps directly into the M365 and SharePoint platform to really drive library views, document elements, and the schema to classify, extract, translate, and even summarize these documents to really improve search, business automation, and even your compliance strategy. Now, documents present many challenges, but as you can see, AI can really be used to drive efficiencies, unlock insights, create customer delight, and even empower your users to focus on higher impact projects. When we look at this Microsoft portfolio for digital transformation, you'll see many variations of this stack in this and other sessions. Only Microsoft provides such a comprehensive set of capabilities for professionals, citizen developers, and even full-on developers to harness the potential of AI to accelerate this digital transformation. When we look at this portfolio, we want you to really, for our customers, to start at the top and go as deep as you need to. Starting at the top, we have the application layer, and that really covers the content owners and business folks. And this is where SharePoint Syntex a new product capability that builds on top of M365 and SharePoint, really shines. It leverages the no-code and low-code development platform that AI Builder provides in training and configuring these models. And then, of course, that builds on top of the applied AI services for developers to use things like Form Recognizer and the other cognitive services to really take advantage of everything from knowledge mining to metric monitoring to accessibility and more, and really learning how to leverage these capabilities to process documents at scale and automatically. Let's take a look at each layer, starting with Azure Form Recognizer. Azure Form Recognizer makes document process automation possible. It is the only cloud AI-powered document extraction service that tailors its understanding to your forms and documents. It ingests text and structure from information using OCR and additional machine learning technology to understand your content and help you discover the elements in those in the unstructured blocks, as well as the keys and tables and the associated values, and then to output them in such a way that it helps understand the relationships in the original file. In this way, developers and organizations can extract just the information that they need from these forms and documents quickly, accurately, and automatically, and tailor to their specific content needs without heavy manual intervention, heavy costs, and even data science expertise. This service automatically extracts key information from documents to streamline data entry, robotic process automation, knowledge mining, to make it much easier to search across these documents and more. In addition to the extraction capabilities and understanding the document layout, Azure Form Recognizer also includes things like pre-built models that are pre-trained to understand specific business file types like invoices and receipts, and even customizable models that can then be tailored against structured and even unstructured documents to understand key value pairs in forms and tables, as well as specific entities in blocks of text. So you can train your models to isolate what part of the document you want to process, what elements you want to extract from it to drive your business process, and amazingly, to do this in over 100 print languages and over 9 handwritten languages. Now, moving up the stack, we have AI Builder and the rest of the Power Platform, leveraging Power Apps and Power Automate. AI Builder is amazing because it gives citizen developers intuitive access to these models and a training experience that allows them to customize very quickly these models to their specific needs. Within a matter of minutes and without a single line of code, anyone can build intelligent solutions that can be used with Power Automate or even within a Power App, or hey, how about this, with SharePoint Syntex at Microsoft 365. So SharePoint Syntex is a new product, a new premium service that's built on top of Microsoft 365 that was released back in 2020. And Syntex is all about building on top of the already world-class content management system that is SharePoint and providing really an intelligent content service, automating the tasks and process to unlock the knowledge for the content that is being stored there and really drive business process and, more importantly, or as importantly, compliance. We really articulate this value looking at these 3 areas: content intelligence, so kind of building on these models that are derived from the Azure AI APIs and the tools like AI Builder to train them. And then content services. So again, SharePoint already has very powerful managed metadata and taxonomy services that we can take advantage of with these models. Imagine being able to train a model that can extract information, but then before it actually saves it to the library where that document is being stored, to actually compare it and evaluate it against a defined business vocabulary or taxonomy. So that way you have standard tagging of your documentation. And then finally, content discovery. And the content discovery is super important because once you extract that metadata, you want to do something with it, right? And where this becomes really powerful is taking advantage of not just SharePoint search, but also metadata search. So you can leverage this extracted information and start doing metadata search and even natural language search. And then finally, leveraging those labels also with the new information protection capabilities to make sure that your content is not only stamped with the appropriate sensitivity and retention labels, but then the policies that drive those to ensure only the right people see these documents, and that they're retained following your corporate governance strategy. And some new capabilities that we're even starting to roll out that kind of build on top of the rest of this content services stack is the ability to take this metadata and even build intelligent templates to then generate new documents from this extracted information. And the way we look at this and this entire document automation stack and building this intelligence into the document processing experience is really looking at this typical content lifecycle. Every content, every document has some type of virtual lifecycle. And a simple way to look at this graph is to think about, say, a medical clinic where a document might be collected for a new patient who comes in for an appointment and sees the doctor. And that information needs to be stored in the system. The right metadata needs to be extracted from it and kept in a secure place with the right governance policies in terms of security and retention. And then over time, the administrator or the doctors need to be able to use metadata search to find those documents again if a patient calls or there's some follow-up protocol. And then also even using that information maybe to generate a new explanation of benefits document or something that needs to be issued to the insurance provider for payment. Again, leveraging every step in this cycle and all the way up from Azure AI through AI Builder to SharePoint Syntex, we are doing things to provide tools and improved capabilities that touch every part and every step of this content lifecycle. So what we want to do is, I've talked a lot. It'd be great. Let's spend some time kind of looking at under the covers, but before we get there, looking at the top of the covers and seeing how all of these pieces come together and work across SharePoint Syntex, AI Builder, and even Azure Form Recognizer. Let's build on the one that I just talked about. Okay, so let's take a look at how we built this thing. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with a library in SharePoint where we have applied a trained model. So I want to build off of that scenario that I just mentioned a moment ago, where I have maybe a doctor's clinic where they're collecting information from a patient and their appointment, and then they need to record that for tracking purposes as well as issuing a statement to both the patient as well as to the insurance provider. And so what you see here is a fairly standard library that has a whole lot of additional information here. And if we look at one of these documents, this might be a document that was captured during an on-site care appointment. And notice a couple of things. There's not only key value pairs in the form, but there's also just handwritten information. And so what we can do is we can train a model here that can extract this information automatically. And so this paper copy can actually be scanned in or even have a Power App that could take a picture of this file and then put that information into this library. While we walk through a little bit more about this library, let me go and imagine, let's imagine that I have, as a doctor or an admin, have just processed one of these files. I want to go ahead and just upload it here. And you'll see that what happens is as that file gets uploaded directly or through an app or a scan arrives in this library, you'll notice that what we do here is we inform the user, if they are in the library, that we're analyzing this file. So what's happening here is this library has been updated with a model that has been trained to understand this form and extract this information from it. And what's neat about this is when this model has been trained and applied to this library, for those of you who are familiar with configuring SharePoint document libraries, they're very powerful. You have a lot of things that you can do, but you have to know a little bit about what's happening with a document library to make sure that you configure the right column information, that you have the right view, that you have a content type for the model associated and applied to this library correctly. The wonderful thing about Syntex is, as a part of training that model using AI Builder and Azure Form Recognizer, we do all that heavy lifting for you. And so once you're done and have trained this model, you can go ahead and apply this model to the library, and then it will go ahead and do all the right library configuration that I just mentioned, and it's ready to go. And you'll see here that that file that was just uploaded either directly by a user or from a scanner or from a Power App picture that was taken has now uploaded it. It's extracted all of the information from that form, handwritten, by the way, and even applied, in this case, a retention label. And that retention label may have a policy applied to it that does something to set the confidentiality in terms of how long this file gets retained, and even securing it as far as who has permission to look at the files in this library for security reasons. Now, the other thing that we can do is, because we've extracted this information, you can also imagine that using some of the new Syntex document assembly features, I might generate a template from these files. And that template could be something that takes select information from this extracted on-site care form to issue a payment to either a receipt for the customer, or even issue something to the insurance provider for them to do their processing. The other thing that we do here is imagine that this library over time obviously gets populated with not just the files for a particular patient, but many patients. And you want to have an ability to go and find something, let's say from a particular appointment. I want to look up something from Adele, an appointment from Adele, and maybe even find out what was her most recent appointment. I also might want to look at a specific set of information. And so one of the things that we've done with Syntex is we've added this metadata search capability. And you'll see here that there's some default fields that I could use, but I can also even go and add other specific things. Like, let's say I wanted to go look for only Adele's receipts or on-site care forms from a particular practitioner or a particular insurance provider. So if we were to go something like the insurance provider and go something like Safe Care, and maybe look for the patient's first name or even the file name, but let's actually go ahead and just use a keyword here like Adele and do that search, we'll get just those receipts for Adele from that particular insurance provider. So now that you can see the power of how all these pieces come together, let's go and look at what we did to actually put this together and see where AI Builder, Azure Form Recognizer, and the back end of Syntex come into play. Okay, you've seen how a solution like this could be implemented for a medical clinic. Now let's go under the covers and see how we put this library together. If I take a look at this library here, we have the ability to not only train these models through SharePoint Syntex using AI Builder and Azure Form Recognizer, but also these models can be captured and even reused. Perhaps you have to create them for a different library, for a different set of a different department, or even for a different quarterly time period. So the way you would do that is under the Automate menu. We have this new option for Syntex users called View Models. And what you can see here is a couple of things. There's not only models that have been published and are available for applying to this library or other libraries, and I can even look at those details and see what information is being extracted and other information about the model. I can even get help figuring out which of these models might be appropriate for the content that I'll be storing in this library. But in this case, if I want to go and create a model, I'm going to be presented with a bunch of these model options, and you'll see here's some of those pre-built models that are available from Azure Form Recognizer. And then you'll see that here's this form processing one. That one is the one we actually use to put together this on-site care form. And so what you'll see here is when I click into this, I can look and go, oh, great. This model looks like it's going to be the appropriate one for the things that I need to extract from this on-site care form. Let's go ahead and use this one. And now what happens is I will go through the process of creating this model. And in SharePoint, what we'll do is we'll create a new model container for this model. And I'll go through this process of selecting what entities, what information to extract from the document, providing some sample documents to actually label that information, and then applying this model to the library. So we complete that full process of not just training that model, publishing it, but also applying it to the place where I need it. And one of the things for you Syntex users that's going to look a little bit different here is when we have created form processing models in the past using AI Builder, we would send you directly into AI Builder. But now what we're doing is bringing AI Builder into the Syntex training experience. And so I'm going to kind of fast track through a part of this but you'll see that this experience is AI Builder. This is the identical process of going through the training of a form processing model. So I go and select those fields that I want to extract from this on-site care form. I provide those 5 samples, and then I see what the model has detected. I can go ahead and do some additional labeling and specify what those fields are, what those entities are to aid the model before training. And I'll go and do the rest of that experience. And then when I've satisfied the model tagging portion, I can go ahead and train this model. And then in the case of Syntex, what we'll do is we'll take you back to sort of like a model detail page and let you know, like, well, if for some of the models that might take longer, that they're still being processed, they're still being trained. But then when they're ready, we'll give you some notification that the model is now ready for use. Essentially, it's ready to be applied to a library. So in this case, because I maybe started creating this model from a SharePoint site, I will automatically be directed to that specific library where I can apply that model. But I would also have the option to actually go, maybe I wanted to apply this model to a different library than where I started. And in some cases, some of these models can be created in what's called the Syntex Content Center. And what that is that's a special site that allows you to create more enterprise-wide models. So if you have a model that needs to be not just used by a specific site, but maybe available to your entire organization, you can train that model there, and then that model will be available for discovery or use across the entire tenant. So in this case, I can go ahead and add that model to the library, and just like that, the model is now applied. And in the case of most Syntex models, if you apply it to a new library, then what will trigger that model to process the file is on upload. However, that file comes into the library, again, whether it's through user manual upload, like I illustrated earlier, or through something like a Power App or a scan job or something like that that directs the digital file to this library. But the other thing that you can do is if the library already has existing files in it, you can go ahead and select those files and actually run the model against those existing files to get this metadata. And there you see how Syntex is building on top of Azure Form Recognizer and AI Builder to really facilitate this process for content creators and content owners to very easily train powerful models that can not only classify information, but very readily extract that information and then leverage all the power of the SharePoint Content Services system for search and retrieval and compliance and even building business process on top of this extracted metadata. Now I'd like to hand it off to Cedric, who's going to share with you some exciting new things that are coming.
Thank you, Sean. Hello, I am Cedric Bellarosa, Product Manager in the AI Builder Product Group. I'm going to show you a new capability added recently in Azure Cognitive Services. This allows to extract data not only from forms, like was presented before, but from any kind of document, which can be contracts, notes, or any free-form documents. So this capability will also be available in AI Builder next month and in Syntex just after the summer. Let's take a look. For those who are not yet familiar with AI Builder, this is the layer that is used by Syntex to create models. So I'm going to show you this document processing capability. So you can extract any kind of textual data from documents, and you can, for instance, perform some risk assessment, quality control, or trigger other processes using those metadata. Let's see this in action. So I'm going to create a new model, and first step will be to tell the model which fields I want to extract from those documents. I'm going to take a structured form, unstructured form, and I'm going to add some fields. So I'm interested in the agreement date, the party 1, party 1 alias. So these are contracts. So parties are the parties involved in the contract. Also fix that. I will also capture the initial payment terms, sorry, and the notice period. I'm done defining the fields I want to extract. Now let's provide the model with some sample documents to allow learning from past data and then being able to find those information in the documents. So I'm uploading some sample documents. You can upload as of 5 documents. For this kind of model, it's better to provide 15 to 20 documents, but you will see that even with 5, we are getting some decent results. So once I've uploaded the sample document, I will tell the model where the fields can be found in the documents provided. Okay, let's make it bigger. And we are going to tag first the agreement date, which is here. We are going to tag the party 1, which is Heton. This is the alias of the first party, and that's the second party and the alias. Now I'm going to the page 7 to tag the amount, so the initial payment. The initial payment is here. And now I'm going to the page 13 to tag the notice period. The notice period is here, 30 days after sending the invoice. So I'm tagging the notice period. Here it is. So to complete the training of this model, I have to do the same with the 5 samples I have in my models. For the interest of time and given the training takes roughly half an hour, I will show you the result directly with a model which was trained before. I'm going to click on Quick Test. I'm going to pass another document. And here it is. You see the magic of AI. We have been able to capture the agreement date, the first party, and the alias, the second party, and the alias. And if we look into the second page, we also see the initial payment terms. And finally, we get the notice period. So you see that with totally random and unstructured documents, we are able to capture specific data that can be used as a metadata for indexing, archiving, risk assessment, triggering another process that will use this metadata, and many other capabilities. So that's a really super powerful and exciting feature. And now I'm going to hand over to Neta Haibi that will show you what's behind the scene.
Thank you, Cedric. I'm Neta Haibi, Group Product Manager in Azure AI. Behind the scenes, SharePoint Syntex and AI Builder use Form Recognizer to extract the information from documents. Azure Form Recognizer includes pre-built models such as invoice, receipts, ID, W-2s, and more, and also enables you to train custom models tailored to your documents. Let's see how you can also train a custom model using the Form Recognizer API. So all you need to do to use the Azure Form Recognizer API is install an SDK in the language of your choice. Currently, I selected to install the Python SDK. To install it, you run the pip install to the latest release to install the SDK and start using Form Recognizer API. What you saw behind the scene is the first part where you train a model. To train a model, all you need is a valid Form Recognizer resource and a SAS token to the labeled data set. And you use a single call to the API. So you set the SAS token, you give your model a name, let's call it model name build, We're going to use the CUAD data set. And basically, you put the description, what type of model you want to run. So because these are unstructured data, we're going to use the neural option in Form Recognizer. You can also use the template option in Form Recognizer to train documents for templates for structured documents, or the neural model if you want to train models for unstructured documents, and your model ID, which is your model name. If your data is under a folder, you also put the folder in your container, the prefix to the folder. Let's run this. So this is all you need to train a model. Now, as we know, the neural model takes up to 20 minutes to train. So you can check the status of the model. You have an API in the SDK to check the status. When you run this, you can see the model is running. So you train the model, you can check the status. You check the status until the model completes running. Because this takes about 20 minutes, we're going to use a different model to analyze a document. And all you need to do is call the Analyze API, give it your model ID. The model ID, I'm using a model ID I pre-trained because the training takes about 20 minutes, so in favor of time. But you can also use a pre-built model, for example, to analyze using the same Analyze API. Let's run this. So now it's running, it's sending the document to Form Recognizer to analyze, and Form Recognizer is analyzing the document to extract the information. Once Form Recognizer completes the run, you can see it outputs all the fields we labeled. So here's the party 1 and its value, party 2 alias and its value, the agreement date, the payment address, the clauses we labeled. All the key value pairs will be outputted, including their confidence. And basically, you can use that information to populate the SharePoint libraries, to automate processes, to do searches and knowledge mining. You saw how with simple API calls, you can also train a custom model using Azure Form Recognizer to extract data from documents. Now I'll hand it back to Sean.
Thank you, Netta, and thank you, Cedric. I hope you can see that between Azure Form Recognizer, AI Builder, and SharePoint Syntex, we have some very exciting new capabilities coming to help you build powerful, intelligent document processing solutions. Please be sure to check out the links, some of the other sessions, and we're very excited to see what you end up building with these things. Thank you so much for your time.